Pete Carroll had a press conference, and a lot came out of it. But before I even get into the details, let me tell you right now, I'm convinced we're going to see a move before Week 1. Not just some minor thing, I'm talking about a real move. A splash. Because Carroll wants to win right now. He believes in young guys, yeah, but he only plays them if they're ready.
What's up, Raiders fans? Welcome to the NFL Playbook Raiders. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This channel is all about breaking down everything you need to know about the Raiders. Now, if you listen carefully to what Carroll actually said and the way he said it, you can tell he isn't fully satisfied with the depth behind his starters. Q Blue Kelly and Eric Stokes, they're pretty much locked in at the top. But behind them, that hierarchy is wide open. Guys aren't separating. Production isn't matching competition. And Carroll can say competition is great all he wants, but at some point, production has to be there too. You can compete all day, but if receivers are still running wide open against you, then it doesn't matter. And you all saw it, just like I did. The 49ers were getting free releases and big plays in the secondary. So yeah, the coaches can say communication is coming along, that there haven't been major breakdowns, but to me that sounded more like covering than truth. This is why I feel a move is coming. You can't go into the season with that kind of uncertainty in the secondary. Now, let's talk about the offensive line for a minute, because Carroll sounded genuinely pleased there, and for once I actually agree with him. Kolton Miller is solid. He's a leader. Jordan Meredith is coming into his own at center, and the staff loves his consistency. Dylan Parham is doing his thing, showing toughness and even some fire when he got pissed off at the defense during practice. That kind of edge matters. Carroll said he just let him bark in the huddle because that's who he is, a guy who cares, a guy who stands up for the offense. You need that kind of nastiness up front. And look, Geno Smith has been kept clean so far. The pass protection has been solid, and the run game has started to find rhythm. That's real progress. When you can say your quarterback hasn't even been touched much during preseason, that's a sign your line is doing its job. But there are still questions with depth. You've got players like Alex Kappa just getting back, trying to show whether they can perform after time off. That's not locked in yet. So while I think the starting five are coming into focus, Miller, Parham, Meredith, JPJ, and DJ Glaze, the backups are where things could shift. We've all seen how one injury can wreck an offensive line if the reserves aren't ready. So yeah, I could also see some kind of move there, but less likely than in the secondary. Defensive line is another area where things feel fluid. Tyree Wilson, let's be real about this, Carroll said he's making steady progress. But steady doesn't mean great. Steady doesn't mean he's at the level Carroll wants. It just means he's inching along. And this is his third year. You shouldn't still be getting moved around just to see where you fit. That's not what you want to hear. Carroll admitted they've tried him inside, outside, shifting him around just to find his best spot. That doesn't scream confidence. To me, Tyree Wilson looks like he's headed for more of a permanent inside role where his size and bull rush can be used straight up the middle. And then you've got Malcolm Koonce. Carroll spoke about him finally looking back to himself after missing time. And it's true, after lower leg injuries, half the battle is mental. You have to trust your body again. Carroll said it himself. Physically, Koonce has all the strength, all the explosiveness. But until you believe you're really back, you're not. Lately, though, you can see it in him. He's flying around. He's showing toughness. And it looks like he's finally turned the corner. That's encouraging, and that's why I'd hate to see him go. But here's where things get interesting. Trey Hendrickson. You've all seen the rumors. The Bengals' star pass rusher, one of the best in the league, not happy with his contract, might be on the move. Now, I'm not saying it's a lock, but there's a pathway. The Bengals just paid big money to Burrow, to Chase, to T. Higgins. That's a lot of money tied up in the offense. Are they really going to break the bank for a 30-year-old defensive end? Maybe not. Hendrickson had 17.5 sacks last year. That's elite. He had more than half of Cincinnati's team sacks by himself. That's insane. If he's available, don't you at least explore it? Here's where the cost comes in. To get a player like Hendrickson, you're probably giving up one of Koonce or Wilson, plus an early pick. A second rounder, maybe even a second and a third. That's steep, no doubt. And I hate the thought of losing Malcolm Koonce because he's been grinding and he's a fan favorite. But Hendrickson makes you instantly better, no debate. That's the kind of deal where you have to weigh emotion against impact. Do you want to keep a player you like? Or do you want to add a guy who could change your defense overnight? If that trade went down, I wouldn't be shocked. Surprised, yes, but not shocked. There's definitely a scenario where it happens. Now, Carroll also touched on roster cuts, and you could hear the human side of him there. He said there's really no good way to do it. He just tells guys the truth, why they didn't make it, what they need to work on, and leaves the door open. And I respect that because he's right. In this league, it's never forever. Guys get cut and then come back on practice squads, or they get called up when injuries hit. Carroll says he gives them a path, and I like that. It's a tough part of the business, but honesty matters. The final preseason game is coming, and Carroll said he doesn't want guys trying to do too much. He doesn't want them going out there pretending to be someone else. He just wants them to show who they are, play with confidence, and prove they can handle the pressure of a big moment. That's what separates the guys who make it from the guys who don't. If you can be yourself and play clean football when everything's on the line, that's when a coach knows he can trust you. One thing Carroll was asked about that made me laugh a little was when a reporter asked if everyone was live on Saturday. Carroll's answer was, yeah, everyone's alive. Now come on. Alive and live are two different things. He slipped up there. You could tell he didn't mean all the starters are going to play. In fact, I think we can take the opposite from that answer. Starters aren't going to play much, if at all, in this last game. They'll be kept fresh for Week 1. Another interesting moment came when Carroll talked about competition in the division. He said, "Isn't that something?" when asked about facing Sean Payton, Andy Reid, and Jim Harbaugh. And he's right. If you want to be great, you've got to beat the best. And this division is stacked with great coaches. That's the challenge, and honestly, that's what makes it fun. So, where does that leave us heading into the season? I'll tell you. Quarterback, running back, receivers, tight ends. Those groups are locked in. The starters are set. The backups are clear. Linebackers, too. No real questions there. The offensive line looks good, still needs depth, but solid at the top. Defensive line has talent, but questions about roles. The secondary question mark, that's the one spot that feels wide open after the starters. That's where the move is coming, I'm calling it now. That's my time for today. I wanted to break down everything Carroll said, give you my perspective, and show you why I think a move is still on the way. Keep your eyes open for news, because I really believe something's coming before Week 1. Secondary depth, maybe a big splash trade, we'll see.